Welcome back to the Be the CEO of Your Life and Business podcast. This week, Amy and I are actually talking about um, our 2 years in business. We cannot believe that November is our 2 year anniversary. Isn't it amazing?
It's amazing. So exciting.
I can't believe it's been 2 years. So at this time last year, we did our 1 year anniversary episode, and we talked about, the lessons learned in our first year of business. And after 2 years, I mean, Amy, tell me if you disagree, but I feel like we've had a lot of growth in this second year, so
Yeah.
much more so, just in a different way from our first year in business. And I had the opportunity to really, really think about and recognize how far we've come. This past week, I was away with my husband for a work trip that for some boards that he sits on, that they do an in-person event every year, every October.
Mhm.
But the last time that this event was in person was 3 years ago, 2019, right before I left our prior firm. And what it was that caused me to leave had just happened right before we had this trip. And so when we were going away last week, I don't know if it was like anxiety or whatever it was. It was just a really, like, I couldn't stop thinking about where you and I were 3 years ago
Yeah.
and where we are now. And we've come so far, and have just grown so much. But like you were saying before we started recording, it's been like, I don't know, you said slow growth, but I feel like it's been a little bit faster than we anticipated. Do you agree?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, slow growth in so much as we're not like an overnight success kind of thing,
Right.
right? Like we didn't just like leave, hang a shingle, and then all of a sudden like hordes of people were
Right.
lining up outside. But it's like I think the growth that has been faster is the leveling up that we've had to do personally and we talked about this yesterday of like breaking that perception that we were just the workhorse in the business and then had to take on this role as a manager and business owner and had to figure out how to be that when we didn't have the experience to do that while still maintaining the work that we knew we how to do this whole time.
Right. So we've been right. So in the beginning, had come from, or especially when I went out just by myself, you know, I had come from being the role as like the workhorse, like
Right.
I just did the work and that was it. And then moved into, a space where had my own firm. So I wore like every hat. I was the talent, I was the manager, I was, all the things.
Yeah.
Which was real. It was a really hard adjustment. And we've really been, we were listening to a podcast episode yesterday where they were talking about entrepreneurs, and you can either be the talent in your business, like you basically just have a job, like you're employed by your own business,
Mm-hmm.
or you manage the talent. You're the business owner, right? So I feel like we were originally the talent, and we still have to be to some extent, but now we're moving into a space where we have to like adjust to managing the talent.
Yes.
And it's almost like, I don't know, I feel like we're resisting it a little bit. Do you think? I feel that, do
I
you?
agree. No, I agree with that because you're like breaking up with the person that you were and you're starting this brand new adventure with the person that you don't even know how to be yet. So it's interesting to think about that. And I think that it makes us kind of look back and reflect and say like, wow, we really have made leaps and bounds in the past 2 years from what we were when you left in 2019. You were that workhorse that all of a sudden had to be the owner of a brand new business and wear 7,000 hats, right?
Yep.
When I left in 2020, I had to again break up with that idea of like just being the workhorse and have to learn how to be a partner in business and learn how to manage a firm and deal with the administrative aspects of a firm that you've already been doing for 10, 11 months. Then we had onboarded a paralegal to help us right away, and we had onboarded another attorney that was going to be doing work with us. And it was these constant shifts of like our mindset, of what our expectations are of ourselves, what we had to delegate that we were no longer in complete control of, which is a big thing too, when you have to all of a sudden be told like, oh no, you should be giving that to to another person and divvying up your work because you don't have to be touching all of it. And it's like, wait, what? I don't have to be doing all of this? That's a big shift for people to make that have been so used to. I mean, you've been used to doing that for 20 years now.
Right.
And for me, I
Yeah.
was used to doing that consistently um for the better part of a decade. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden I'm like, oh wait, I have to tell other people that they have to
Right.
do this or teach them how to do that. And that's a learning curve too, you know?
Yeah, and sometimes we struggle with delegating, which I know we've spoken about before.
Yeah,
But even that was, an adjustment when we brought on our paralegal, who Dawn started full time with us at the beginning of this year.
right.
So for the first year that we were in business, we didn't, I mean, she was helping us a little bit, like part time, but we
Yeah,
didn't have a full time paralegal.
right.
So we were doing everything, literally
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Remember? And it was so hard. The
yeah,
first thing we delegated in that first year was our social media,
yeah,
right? Our marketing. We hired our marketing company, which was one of the best decisions we ever made. So we delegated that because we made the decision like upfront from the beginning that was not something we wanted on our plate. We
right.
needed somebody who was actually like an expert in that, which we
Yes.
are not. So that was the first thing I would say we delegated. But in terms of work, like our actual work, we delegated nothing for or
Right.
very little for
Yeah.
the first year. Dawn was helping me with a little bit of my real estate, but that was really it. So it was hard because we were still in that workhorse mode, but we had all these other things that we were trying to handle. And
Hmm.
that's when we decided in year two that we were going to hire Dawn full time. And do you remember how scary it was to make that decision?
The scariest thing ever. That
Right?
like business owners will tell you it's so scary to have team members because you feel like their family, like if you run into that family, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to keep on making money and building my business so that we can continue to sustain an income for this like it is a different level of pressure and stress that we had never really experienced before. And so we tiptoed into it and then realized like, okay, who are we kidding? We need Dawn to be full-time hours for us. We know that she's going to excel and it's going to be the best thing for us to have her really in control of like office manager stuff and paralegal stuff like she's used to. And I mean, it shows like she's flourishing. She's thriving in this, full-time experience with us.
Oh, she's so much better at it
So good.
than I am. Like
Yeah.
there are, it's almost like as a business owner, you have to accept that there are people that are going to be better than you at certain things.
Hmm.
Like you don't have to hold on to everything and have it be your responsibility. Like she is so much better at, you know, organizing the real estate files, keeping track of the deadlines, all of the office administration stuff. Like
Oh yeah.
she's amazing on the phones with everybody. She keeps our calendar organized, like all that stuff. All of our like graphic designing stuff, like she, works with our
Okay.
logo and does our letterhead and like all this stuff. Which she's so much better at all of that than we are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to just recognize that delegating is not only going to free up your time, but it's going to free up your mental space,
Absolutely.
right?
I actually, just to stay on one of the other ways that Dawn contributes is even just so much as like saving and organizing our files for the firm on our server. She is always thinking of like, how can I make this better? How can I make
Yep.
it easier for us? And I used to be so particular about how, and this is because I learned from Dawn while working with her, but just in the role reversal where I was her legal secretary or as the legal secretary of the office. She was the paralegal training me when I had first started in the legal career. And so I learned everything from her. And so it was a very particular way of how things had to be, labeled in the system. It was the date, it was the item itself, and it was very particular. And
Yeah.
I used to do that, and I was very particular about it, for that 1 year that we didn't have her full time. And then when she started saying, you know what, I don't think we need to keep saving it this way, or I think this could be a better way of doing it, I had no problem with letting go of that control, just because I knew that if it was going to make her life easier, then it's going to make my life easier. And I will
Right.
adapt before I tell her you need to stick with something, because I'm used to it some way.
Right.
I and I think that's a big lesson that I have had to learn, because I can be very much like a control freak about certain things, because I like things the way I like things, just like
Mm-hmm.
everybody does.
Yeah.
But being able to let go of that bit of control and realize that I'm here to serve her, she's not here to serve me. So if I can serve her by allowing her the space and the flexibility to explore and figure out what works best and what systems work best for her, then I'm going to let her do it. And I'm going to let her
Right.
have the autonomy to do it. And I think that's a big tip that we could probably give to other business owners. Like, really give that confidence and give that, like, not vote of confidence, but give that respect, I guess, to the employees and the team members that you have, to make the choices that they want.
Independence.
Yeah, that independence. Thank you. That's a great word. That independence.
Yeah, I think that's big because I think it boosts morale, right?
Hmm.
So if she knows she has the autonomy to do like certain things, which she totally does, like
Yeah.
I said, I am like in her face, giving her stuff to do all the time, which is, you know what? This year has shown me that it's important that we follow our instincts
Yeah.
because, and it's funny, when in 2019, when I went out on my own, what did I say to you? I said, this is so scary.
Uh-huh.
But I just feel like this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Everything will be okay. And it was. And same thing when we hired Dawn. Like, this is very scary. We're responsible for somebody else's paycheck every 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Um, and, but I felt like, and I'm pretty sure you said the same thing, like, it'll be okay.
Yes.
Like, we'll figure it out. We need the help. It's going to work. And it's been fine the whole year, right? So we've been
Yep.
fine.
Yep.
And then we had other, should we call them callings? Or I don't know, like intuitions that we needed to, okay, we had Dawn,
Taps on the shoulder.
taps on the shoulder, that we needed to bring another attorney into the mix.
Yep.
So we've kind of been like speaking this out into the universe for like several months now.
Hmm.
And we had somebody, right? We had somebody in the beginning of the year, or
Yeah.
maybe in the springtime. And then she, moved on to, because she wanted to work somewhere else, full time, which was fine. So we had her helping for a little bit. And I feel like that kind of gave me the opportunity to like test the waters of having really another attorney working for us.
Yes.
And it was great to be able to give her stuff and push things off my plate. But then, a couple months after she left, then we started really getting like that tap to like, okay, it's time to bring somebody else into the mix. And we thought it was going to be one person, and then we couldn't make it work at that moment in time. And then somebody else miraculously came
Yeah.
into the mix, right? Who's now of counsel to our firm. And that was a huge step for us, I feel
Yeah.
like, because I've actually given her work to do over the last couple of weeks, and she's been amazing. And I'm like, what was I so worried about? Like, she's done a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And so now we're moving into like the phase of really more management, wouldn't you
Right.
say?
Yeah. Of replicating ourselves, which
Yeah.
is weird. Okay.
Isn't it so weird?
It is very weird. Um, I don't know. I don't know the best way to put it, but it kind of just reaffirms that this is kind of the vision that we have had. We didn't know how we were going to get there, but it's really cool to kind of see it playing out and then take a look back in the rear view and be like, oh, that's why that happened. Oh, that's what that was setting us up for. And
Mhm.
I'm just a strong believer in all of that. And I'm really big on reflection and looking back and seeing where you're coming from, where you're going, and using it to kind of guide you in that direction. And so having this new attorney come on and realizing it's not that scary to be delegating more work, more of our legal work that
Right.
would normally be our baby, right? Like we would not be giving it over freely to anybody. Even in all of the years that you and I worked together, we had our own cases, we had our own
Yep.
clients, we were kind of like separation of church and state kind of
Yep.
thing for us. But we would obviously help each other out and cover where we needed to. But when you are a practicing attorney, like your cases, you get into them and you know every nook and cranny of them. So to give that over to somebody else is a big deal,
Yeah,
you know?
it
Um,
is.
and not give it over completely, but it also then reminds Laura and I that there might be some more that we need to explore within the next couple of months in that direction that's going to help us. And it's really scary, but we need to venture down those paths. And that's because everything that you're doing now, you have to take notice and think of it in the mindset of like, where are you going? Don't just appreciate what it's done for you so far, but appreciate where it's taking you to. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think that's where I was at, like right before I went on this trip last week. I couldn't tell if it was like anxiety because it brought me back to like that moment in time, which was a really terrible time.
Yeah.
Um, or it was almost like anxiety, but also at the same time, I was like so appreciative for the fact that that happened. Of course, I couldn't see that then,
Right.
but had that not happened, we wouldn't be here today. I
No.
can say that 100%. Like, if that incident had not happened, we would not be here. And so
True.
once I got past like the anxiety part of it and realized that it's not 3 years ago anymore and I am not in that space anymore,
Right.
um, I really thought about how, we're in such a better place and just so thankful for like all the things that have happened along the way over the
Yeah.
last 3 years
Yeah.
to bring us to where we are now. Because we are in, like, to say we're in a better place is like the understatement of the century. Like you can't even put it into words.
So I have to share this because this was something that we talked about as a team yesterday. Laura and Dawn and I were working in the office together and we were talking about this specifically. The three of us have worked together since the 2000s, since
Yeah.
2008. And then we all kind of split off and had gone our separate ways. Dawn was in a different profession altogether for many, many years. And then all found each other again. And the way that Dawn said it, I just loved so beautiful. It was so beautiful. She said, we got to kind of like have a test drive to see the personalities that like we wanted to work with and we felt were going to be the best for us. And coming back together and being very particular about like who we are surrounding ourselves with has been such a game changer
Yeah.
for us. Um, because we don't just let everybody in to the circle that we are trying to build. And even professional circles, we talk about this a lot. Our energy and the people that we surround ourselves with, it's really important. It's important for everybody. And we just want to continue to reiterate that. That's something else that we've learned in these past 2 years is like surround yourself with the people that really are going to help bring out the best in you and like keep that positive energy flowing. You don't have time for the opposite at all. You have no time for the negative energy and the negative people in your life.
Yeah. And that is, I think if I had to think about what the biggest lessons I've learned over, I mean, over the last 2 years, but really over the last year, is what you just said, is the importance of who you surround yourself with. Because when I have interactions with certain people, it's not good. Like it's bad energy, it's negativity, and I just can't. I was just saying to Amy before, like I can't handle it to the point that I think that I'm going to do whatever I can to distance myself from certain people who I have cases with and stuff like that. Even to the point where if somebody comes to me with them like on a case, like I'm not going to take it. And because who you surround yourself with makes all the difference in the world. Now, obviously, some things you just can't avoid. It is what it is. You just have to learn how to deal with it. But to the extent that I can control that,
Yeah.
that's, a big change that I'm going to make in 2023.
Yeah.
And the other lesson is that our instinct is important. Like our our gut feelings and the feelings I get. Amy knows I'm a Looney Tune. Like she
Yep.
just rolls her eyes at me. She's like, "Oh my God, here we go."
Not surprised anymore.
Amy's used to it. But like the instincts that I get and the feelings that I get about like people or things that are happening or certain things we should do are usually correct. And so, but Amy too, you're the same way.
Yeah.
So I think that it's more important for us than ever to really listen when it's speaking to us because it's trying to tell us something. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even the podcast episode that you were talking about that we had both listened to this week, the speaker on there had said that she had gotten like a tap on her
Yes.
shoulder, a voice in her head of like, you're here. You've made all this money. You've done all these things. You're buying all this property. You're doing what else are you going to do? And as a result, she asked herself that question. The answer came to her. And now she's building this burgeoning center and this whole other arm of her business that she didn't even have on her radar because she wasn't listening to herself. And then
Right.
she finally started listening to herself and was like, oh, wow, okay. And it's something that she's become so passionate about and found a reignited purpose of. I couldn't agree with you more on those 2 points. And I'm actually hearing you say that and I'm thinking, oh, the naysayers are like, oh, look at them. They're just being so particular. They want to
Oh,
X people out. Yeah, actually I do. I mean, not gonna lie, because guess what? It's in your control. And I don't ever want to have to look back and say, oh, I should have done it differently. Well, you could do it differently now. So I love that tip. I think that's a great tip to provide.
yeah, to the extent it's in your control, it really makes such a huge difference. I'm really looking forward to 2023. We've talked about our plans and things that we want to focus on and do with the podcast and all this stuff. And we
Yeah.
love, that's the other thing. I mean, we love doing this podcast so much, and we like to come on here and share our experiences with the hope that it'll help somebody.
Yeah.
Whether you're a business owner, just an employee, I mean, whatever it is, like we hope that there's something you can take from the lessons we've learned over our 2 years in business that'll help you either in your business or personal life. So we thank you for spending time with us today, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.